What's good, everybody? It's Jay Coffee on the vid. Now check it out. Word has come out that Jimmy Henchman, a former major player in the hip hop industries, appeal in the conviction of murder for hire, which is, one of the many life sentences that this guy is serving right now. This guy has a lot of life sentences that he's serving, but in this particular case, the final appeal has been exhausted and denied. Now, it's kind of wild situation, as there was a whole lot going on here. Jimmy Henchman is one of 50 Cent's arch nemesis, enemy. To the day they both die, these guys are going to hate each other, as we see 50 Cent take jabs at Jimmy all the time on Instagram, every chance he gets. But I mean, I'm sure we all remember, but if not, let's go kind of back over some of this information of what went down.
Your dad was actually found guilty this summer of drug trafficking, and he's in a detention center right now. Could be facing life in prison. I know that must be really tough.
Very tough.
For you.
Yes.
You're close to your dad.
Yes, like a best friend. Just gotta stay strong. I'm just disappointed that these lies that they had on him. At the end of the day, and I know my father, and anybody know my father. He got a great heart.
When one of 50 Cent's associates assaulted you, he ended up going to jail, and then he was killed once he got out. Your dad was actually indicted this summer for his murder along with some other men.
Yes.
Do you feel that your dad had something to do with this?
To my knowledge, no. Because we took the right action and try to put him behind bars, because that, unfortunately I was in a situation that I believe I should have been in. I didn't deserve that. Anybody who know me, I'm 14.
You didn't deserve that.
So I'm not the one in the cameras, talking beef, having beef talk, saying, FG unit or any stuff like that. I didn't deserve that at all.
All right, so you guys hear that clip there, and that was Lil Henchman, Jimmy Henchman's son, in an interview speaking about an altercation incident, beef with G-Unit, with Tony Yayo. And, it's just kind of wild. I want to know what you guys think about that situation. This is years back. I believe this is like 07 or something along those lines. You heard what Lil Henchman said. He said, I didn't deserve that. I didn't have nothing to do with that. I was 14. I wasn't the one talking about FG Unit or whatever, you know what I mean? And, what was going on is Jimmy Henchman, Czar Entertainment, was who the game had signed a management deal with. Now, there's a lot of people that speculate that Henchman was the one that got in the game's ear to diss 50, that Henchman didn't like 50. I don't know. You guys can sound off in the comments about that. But, Game was in full GU not mode. You know what I'm saying? Which, as we all know, they're cool nowadays. And, many times over the years, he would diss 50 and G-Unit and then, offer peace treaties and want to get back cool with them. It was always a crazy situation. But, Lil Henchman was wearing a Czar Entertainment hoodie or shirt, sweater, something, and bumped into Yayo and them. And, they slapped this 14-year-old kid. Now, you heard what he said. They tried to go, the non-street way about it and press charges. And, we know Yayo and Lodi Mac, a G-Unit affiliate, were both arrested. Now, there's been different theories on this. Some people believe, that Lodi Mac just took the fall for Yayo. Some people believe Lodi Mac was the one who actually slapped him. I've heard a lot of people say they think it really was Yayo, but nonetheless, Yayo, got a light sentence, probation or whatever. Lodi Mac did a little bit of time and was later killed. And that's one of these life sentences that Jimmy Henchman, was hit with, was murder for hire. As we know from Joe Exotic and Tiger King, murder for hire ain't no joke. even in that situation with Joe Exotic, if it didn't happen, in this situation, this man was indeed killed. Now, real quick, I want to also add, and this is something I'll talk a little bit more about in a minute, Jimmy Henchman, as I stated earlier, has a bunch of other life sentences. This guy was involved in some real gangster stuff, you know what I'm saying? He was a gangster and a businessman. He was within the hip hop industry, managing artists, doing a lot. But he also ended up going down with a lot of different Fed cases, selling drugs. Like on some big time stuff. You know what I'm saying? Major weight, moving major weight, guns, all kinds of stuff. So he is serving multiple life sentences. But when it comes to this case was tried multiple times. I believe a couple times there was a hung jury or a mistrial, you know what I mean, where the case was thrown out, but it wasn't a not guilty verdict. So they were able to retry him until he was eventually convicted. And since the conviction, he's been appealing the case, which now, like we're reporting, the final appeal is deaded. The judge said no way. So Henchman ain't getting out up under.
Here's the most important thing out of this whole thing. I'm not the murderer here. The murderer in this whole situation is home. All he had to do was point the finger at me, and he went home. And I'm in jail for life when I never hired him to kill anyone. So,
oh, gee, Jimmy the Rat.
I'm glad that.
So you guys hear that little clip right there. You see that clip? That's 50 Cent was playing some audio of a Jimmy Henchman interview where he was saying on the murder for hire charge that his co-defendant, who actually committed the murder and implicated him, it was, claiming it was false, claiming that he had nothing to do with it, that guy was just trying to lighten his sentence or whatever. Now, I mean, we all can obviously do the math. Jimmy Henchman getting retaliation. They slapped his 14-year-old son, which is something I really want to hear about from everyone in the comments, what you guys think about that, about, Yayo and them bringing this little kid into the beef. If you think that's, I think that's pretty corny. I think that's pretty foul, man. Slapping a child, like, come on. But, Jimmy Henchman at that time, was still hoping he could indeed win an appeal and overturn this case for good. As I said, the conviction was, or the trial was a mistrial a couple times. Then he was convicted. Then it was overturned. Then he was convicted. Now all his appeals are exhausted. But at this time, he still had hope. Now 50 Cent trolling him there, calling him Jimmy the Rat. As we know how 50 Cent gets down, he's never stopped laying in to Jimmy Henchman on Instagram. But something that I want to talk about is Jimmy Henchman in these snitching allegations. Now, we know over the years, 50 Cent, there's been a lot of, theories that 50 may have worked for the feds, as we've seen Murder Inc. go down with, with the feds, as we've seen Jimmy Henchman go down with the feds, and we've seen other enemies of 50 go down with, FBI locked him up, put charges on him and everything, and a lot of people have just always felt Supreme, Kenneth Supreme McGriff. A lot of people have always felt that Fifth may work for the feds. Now, we've seen paperwork come out that was indeed debunked and said to be false. Jimmy Henchman actually put out some paperwork on 52. We've seen Murder Inc. share that paperwork. The only paperwork that was real was the order of protection. But as far as Jimmy Henchman being a snitch, though, this is something, that it's like discussed a lot. It's a strange situation because, for one, it feels like a lot of people are afraid of Jimmy Henchman in the rap game. When 50 Cent leaked out documents stating that Jimmy Henchman had been a federal informant for quite some time, he said something like Vlad was afraid to put it out. So I guess I'm going to just put it out myself. It's kind of like what 50 Cent said. But there's been, it's a weird thing where the status is kind of unclear. There's word that he's testified on people. There's a lot of different talks that Henchman spoke to the feds. But the argument a lot of people use is, well, if he is indeed a rat, why does he have like 6 life sentences? You know what I'm saying? As we've seen other people, in cases with the mob or whatever, snitch, involved in murders and everything, and get out. We've also seen there was someone who said that Henchman testified against them in their trial, but then later came back and said that they were told to say that and it was false. It's very weird. Either Jimmy Henchman is, it's unclear if he's an informant or not, or he has some pull still, even from behind bars within the media, to get certain statements retracted and things of that nature. But I want to hear everyone's take and opinion on this. There's also word that he told on someone who broke out of jail or something like that. It's just a very, there's a lot of different answers when it comes to Jimmy Henchman. But from the way it's always kind of looked to me, as Henchman was one of those guys similar to like Whitey Bulger, who was doing a lot of gangster stuff. And when it came down to it, he did work with the feds. That's what it kind of has seemed like to me. But before I close this video out, there's one more thing that I want to cover. And that is, 50 Cent and the Game squashing their beef, as, I spoke about. Now, we know Fifth and Game are cool now, but we know it was a long road where 50 Cent want nothing to do with it. And, as I just stated, 50 hates Jimmy Henchman. They had beef. Things went, his man, Lodi Mac, rest in peace, is deceased. And if you remember back in 2016, Fifth straight out said this is something he could never really let go. With Game and Banks bumped into each other in Dubai, 50 Cent put out a caption when they shared that picture where they bumped into each other. Game was all happy. Finally, he could take a step forward to reuniting with 50 Cent and G-Unit. And 50 Cent put out a caption basically saying, hey, this is deeper than rap. Lodi Mac's gone. You know what I'm saying? He ain't still here. We all still are. So call me bitter, call me whatever, but I just can't really let this go. Now, indeed, a couple years later, he got over it and they're cool to this day. But that just goes to show you how much 50 Cent hates Jimmy Henchman. But that's all I really got on this one, guys. Just kind of wanted to, go over some things with everyone, with the people out there, and see what you guys think. So tap in the comments on everything that I touched on this video. Any new viewers out there, make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, as we cover daily content on this channel. Music, news, sports, current events, and much more. It's Jay Coffee Talk signing out. I'm out of here. Peace.